as a team, we intend that there should be effectiveness at every level.
Founder and host of Digital and I'm an image consultant. Now today I will be taking you on corporate communication. Everywhere you go to in life, communication is what speaks for you. Doesn't matter the amount of money that you have, doesn't matter the certificates that you have. If you cannot communicate properly, you're going to lose a lot of opportunities and you're going to lose a lot in life. So communication has to be one of your basic or most basic principle in life. Okay, now we cannot proceed to define corporate communication without defining communication. So there are two keywords here. We have corporate and we have communication. Let's begin with communication. Now it's on the board, you can copy. Communication is simply the act of transferring information from one place, person or group to another. Every communication involves at least one sender, a message and a recipient. I stop here. Now, communication cannot be effective without a sender, a message, and a recipient. For communication to be effective, there are three people involved, or rather three things involved. You have the sender. For example, Miss Abraham is the recipient and I am the sender. But without a message, the communication is not effective. And we must bear in mind that a message is necessarily not verbal. We are going to come to that. I could look at her in the eyes and I'm giving her a message. I could say something and I'm giving her a message. And sometimes even the heart-to-heart connection can be a message. But then without a message, there is no communication. Emotions you express defines your level of communication. Body expression, how are you walking, how are you talking, all of that plays a role in your communication. So your emotions are very important, convincing. You're in a marketing field, I'm sure you find yourself convincing people all the time. That is a master skill of communication. You need to be able to communicate your ideas. 7 C's of communication, that's the next thing we're on. The 7 C's of communication. Now please, if you do have a question, let's indicate with your hand. Alright, we are here to learn and it is a collaborative class. I can learn from you and you can learn from me. That is communication. So according to the 7 C's of communication, communication needs to be, number one, clear. Like I said, it's not about the use of jargons. Some of us who are English lecturers, we love to use jargon sometimes. It has a way it spices communication. But you see, if I use jargons and you do not understand me, then I fail to properly communicate. So it's not about using all the big words. Please, who can give us an example of some big jargons? Nancy, do you know any big words? Do you know any big words? Bamboozle. Okay, I don't even know the meaning of that. Who else knows a big word?
Ramshackle.
Okay. Yeah, we say that. Do you know any big
Gallivanting.
Gallivanting. Damn. Is that right? Yeah, any big word you've heard before and you're like, what's that? Maybe flabbergasted. Have you heard that? Yeah, okay. Now, how does that make you feel? If you're sitting in front of someone and they're just using all those words, I was ramshackle and flabbergasted, how do you understand anything? So at the end of the day, no matter what I'm trying to tell you, the communication is not effective, not so. So that's why you see the importance of being clear in your communication. Alright, the most important thing is that you should be understood. The recipient should understand what you're saying. We talked about the sender, the message, and the recipient. Communication will not be effective if the message is not clear. So clarity is off. But you see, when you find yourself in a professional level and you're talking about relevant things, of course you can put relevance in bracket by concise, because what you're saying has to be relevant. That's what we mean by concision. So you need to be concise. The next thing is concrete. What you're saying, how concrete is it? Are you just talking paranoia or you're actually concrete in what you're saying? You need to be correct. We're still on the 7 C's of communication. I said clear, concise, concrete, correct. What you're saying needs to have credibility. Do not guess things. Be correct in what you're saying. Even if you're creating it, be correct in what you're saying. Cool. You know, essay writing. What do you mean? And the next thing, and okay, conclusion. So your letter, for example, is never complete without a conclusion. And the next thing is cautious. Now, most especially when you're writing to companies or writing to people, you have to be cautious of what you say. People will be used against you someday. Be cautious even when you're writing on social media, because you're communicating. And I'm going to throw more light on that in this area. I didn't plan to do that, but let me talk about being cautious. If you're working for a company, for example, or you're representing any firm in your life, you need to be very cautious about what you put on social media, because it has a way it's going to play for you someday in the future. Now, most companies in the world will refer to your social media when they want to assess your personality. So be sure that what you're reflecting on social media is your personality. You're not just copying what you see. We need to be very mindful of what we put out there. We need to be cautious and don't go about fighting people on social media. It reveals a certain dimension of your mentality, and that is your communication. So we need to be very careful about this. Be cautious, and not just about social media. When you're writing to people, be cautious on how you relate to people in the office. Be cautious of the words you use. Do not sigh. Do not use very terrible words like stupid, idiot, nonsense. Avoid all that. Not just in the office, in your homes, everywhere you go, because that has a lot to tell about your personality, and your personality is reflected in your community.
My next question is, can you get it wrong when somebody communicates?
Just like what you communicating on maybe getting wrong. So I'm gonna tell you what it depends on. Maybe when you're out of topic. Like for example, you and I can be talking about it, you're just going to be talking about water. If the water is not directly related to the book, you're just taking us out of what we're talking about. And it has a way it's distracting, especially when it's something formal and serious like this. So it's possible to get information wrong. And especially when you're not using the words that you should be using. And when your words are not in line or in sync with your gestures. It's possible.
Okay, that's where I think we need to be.
Okay.
Because I feel that
Yes.
you can be giving a message
Yes.
with all the good intent,
Yes.
but the person
Still gets it wrong.
still gets it wrong.
That is why you're here to train, to learn how to make people see exactly what you're talking about. One way or the other, they need to get it right. It's true that we live in a world where a lot of people misconstrue information, but you also need to check how your person approaches that information. It's very important, because sometimes we keep saying they're just not getting me. All right, find a way. We're talking about mastering skills of communication. Someone will definitely get it right. So this is where you need to improve your skills. Now, the mediocre society will say they just do not get me some sort of way. I'm the founder of a vision, and I make sure that when I'm talking about my messages, people get exactly what I'm saying. So wherever you find yourself, you need to master the skills of communication to ensure that people get you well. If we are out there tomorrow with my boss to talk about Inspire Africa, and people are not getting us, trust me, I'm not going to tell my boss, I said, let's leave this place, they're not getting us. No, I will ensure that they get
It's
us.
the aspect of communication, basically.
Yes.
I say to be some sort of an issue
Okay.
in today's expression.
Very true.
Now, my question is, how can you express yourself? Like, let me use an example of someone who has an issue with attitude.
Yes.
And sometimes you're trying to explain something, people don't get it because of the mindset that they have.
Yeah.
Like, you have a bad attitude regarding to the way you're reacting to those issues. Now, how do you erase such mentality in people's mind? Like, how do you come out of that situation?
Good question. I'm gonna answer, and then if any other person has an answer, you're welcome. Okay, the first thing I'm going to tell you is sometimes people comprehend information also based on their own personality.
Yes, office manager.
That's
I've learned so much, and considering the fact that I'm that type that usually love to be like silent. I don't have like cannot communicate fluently. Yes, I've learned so much that it's like it's good.
Corporate, you're trying not, you're already bringing out my emotions to
No,
the
but okay, yeah, I get your point. But you see, you guys have applied a lot of logic in this class. Okay, but what I want to say is now, I was being honest also. Everyone agrees with me that you're looking corporate.
Yes.
So that was not me trying to get your good. Because I'm even one person who will never flatter. If you didn't look corporate, I believe you've had a session with me, you know how straight I am to everyone. Yeah, so if you're not looking corporate, I'll tell you you're not looking corporate. There are a number of people who are not looking corporate as we speak. So that's why I cannot tell them they're looking corporate, but you actually came prepared for the corporate communication class. So that's not me trying to get your emotions. You already know it. When you look at something in the mirror, don't you look corporate?
Just like when you are talking to a customer, when you are selling the idea,
Yes.
as a corporate person,
Yeah, which is kind of communication.
and you are bringing out the emotion
It is
of that
communication. That's why we spoke about emotions, not so at the
Emotions.
beginning. Yes, it is here we spoke about emotions. You need to work on the emotions of people. There's a way. I cannot come here to tell you about Jesus Christ, and I don't. There's a way I tell you about Jesus. A lot of people do. A lot of people are still learning how to evangelize, which is an issue in communication too. They say no, the soul was not winning. No, that's a lie. It also depends on how you were talking to them. You cannot come to tell somebody about God and you're so unloving in the way you present God to them.
When we're talking about the business of corporate world, it has to do with the real.
Yes.
Politics has money inside, but it is not really
Corporate.
money
Yes.
from the onset, because I want to lead these people. It is not business
Mm.
in the real sense.
Sense, yes.
But we want to bring in logic.
People have turned into
We
telling.
will obviously have what you're saying,
Yeah.
but we want also the idea is understanding that there is a business world. That's why even with NGOs, when you hear an NGO saying that it's a non-profit, it means it is not entering into business, but at the end they still do business, but they are not categorized as being part of business. Yes, profit.
And sir, you mentioned that the religious world is a business world. I'd like to say something, sir. Now, a lot of people we are turning into business world, but it was not meant to be business. Talking to God, or rather talking to people about God, was never meant to be a business.
No, the business, sorry, I'm not cutting you short.
Yes.
The business I'm talking about is you are, when I come to preach to you, I'm selling an idea.
No, okay, so
Only
that's why you
by-
mentioned logic.
yes, that's
That
why-
is philosophy, sir. The scriptures do not tell us to sell God to people. Alright, there's nothing like sell me to the world. He said tell the world about me. Yes, but I get you. But that is at the level
It's
of
at the level of
philosophy.
logic.
And logic, yeah. So those
Application,
people. Okay.
Alright, we are talking about the corporate world,
Yes.
and one of the key aspects as a law is
By the way, you look corporate. That's good. Yeah.
we talk about emotions.
Yes.
Yeah, because people in the corporate world always consider happiness and straight to the point. How can we help you? All of that. Like we have the Americans, they like straight to the point. They see the deal on the go. Yes, and taking it down to our context in Africa, Africans are not that corporate per se when it comes to emotions and balance.
Yeah. Just like a Gary example, because let's always say, "Wow, you're bossy, you can be bossy." Now, and I explained it to you, right? That when it's time for work, I get to work because I'm a corporate person. But outside that, I'm different, which is what you're saying. Now, in Africa, first of all, a lot of people don't like honesty. You know that, right? Where you're honest is an issue. A lot of people cannot stand you telling them this thing is white. This thing is black, but you see in the Western world, they still like it when you tell them this is black, this is white. That's why there's a lot of deception in Africa. Our witchcraft is most at the level of deception. So at the corporate world, that's what we are making a difference in. We are going to tell the truth no matter what. That's what makes us a company with a difference. It's true, there are a lot of people like that, but we're here to make a difference. And in making the difference, we must stick to honesty. We must stand by the truth. Times where you have to make use of Mr. and Mrs. Miss, it just depends on the occasion. Sometimes when work is there's just a level, there's an atmosphere in the office that you should just know by your intuition that you're supposed to say Mr. Miss. There are times I call him Mr. Derek, there are times I call him Derek. Have you noticed it? He just yeah. There are times when I want to do something serious with him, I'm now referring to his office. But when we are just doing casualties, I will say Derek. But there are times when I need him for something, I say Mr. Derek. Yeah, I call you, sometimes I call you Miss Nancy also. Yeah, but at times I could just say Nancy, at times I say Miss Nancy. It just depends on, you need to be, I don't know, we all need to find a way to blend that. It's very important. Next thing is, some things are best said out loud. It's simple to shoot someone a quick email. Just send an email. Sometimes too simple, but don't always take the easy way out. Information that can be easily misunderstood or messages that are personal in nature should be delivered face to face when possible. Just like you cannot be trying to solve marital problems online. It will not go. People need to see face to face. It's the same thing in the corporate world. This online thing really has a way of creating confusion. This person said that one, just meet face to face. And so next thing is avoid controversy. And please, let me look for a simple one describing controversy. The CEO said that, Ms. Nancy said that when Diane came the other day, the marketer was saying that, I heard that Lawson said that, Marie said that is controversy. I hear say in quotes is controversy. So now, and also there are certain topics that just don't need to be brought up around the water cooler or in the break room. This is a literary expression. Okay, politics, religion, yeah. Now there's some things we should avoid arguing about in the corporate world, in the office. Don't bring religious and political matters in the office. It will cause issues. Or start saying between Gamenda people and Bayagi people, who are the most hardworking, who are the most. You people will start arguing from that. Those arguments never end. The non-Western and Southwestern, they never end. So we should not bring in, when we're in boarding schools, we start bringing those controversies in the office. They're not necessary. Or my pastor is better than your pastor. Or I prefer Pastor Christo Apostle Suleiman.
Brief words. Like he had mentioned earlier, they talked about professionalism and all that. The corporate world has to do a lot with business world,
Yes.
where a lot of class, a lot of professionalism is required. So any of these companies that we're talking about, it has to do with the corporate world. It's not. What other word can I put there? Yes, the corporate world has to do with the business world. Every company, every organization we see, they all fall under the corporate world, yes, where things are done at a certain level.
So are you saying that it's okay for us to define corporate communication as business communication?
Yes, the business world.
Okay, so that's another word for corporate communication, business communication. It has to do with landing deals. It has to do with meeting bosses. So when you hear of corporate, you understand what it means? That's what my shirt. Yeah, because you are being corporate, okay? So corporate means business. When you hear of business, what comes to mind again? Yes, your business. Every day we're hearing business. Okay, let us define business in this class. When you hear business, what comes to mind?
Depends on the name of the business.
When you hear business, what comes to mind? Transactions, good. Okay, marketer, tell us business.
Profit.
Is it profit?
Making sales.
Great, yes, making sales. Let me say that in American.
Transactions, deals that bring money.
Okay, but you see, you cannot use business to define corporate, but you can use corporate to define business. Because if I'm selling tomatoes in the market, I'm not a corporate, I'm not a corporate worker.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so never use business, that's why I asked for the definition. Never use business to define corporate, but you can use corporate to define business. Okay, so understand the corporate world, our boss has already told us what the corporate world is all about. It's all about the business world. And you need to understand that in the business world, you meet all sorts of personalities. You meet the good, the bad, and the terrible. You meet all sorts of attitude. And if you were not good at your corporate communication, trust me, there's a lot of things you're going to back down on. I'll let the marketer to give us an experience of some clients in his men that were very tough, but he still, he was able to still convince them and make money out of them. Maybe that will help us a lot.
Okay.
Yes.
One of the greatest experience I've experienced in my life until now was when I spoke to a Jehovah's Witness to get into the system. Yes, it was a horrific experience.
Yeah.
They said, but at the end, I was still able to make profit out of the man through the business that I presented to him.
So what were the main issues?
The main issue there was clashing with the values of money and religion. That was a major issue, yes. The man perceived that I was so money-minded to the point that, yes, there was no way for, yes, but at the end, my experience was in a book that I read. I read the book was Rich Dad Poor Dad, that actually says that every human being has a part of grit in him or her that can be brought out. The moment you try to understand that part, you can bring out that person to love money to accept it. So I find that part again there. I brought the part out there, finally accepted it. And today, let me say praise God. It's one of the top members in the team too.
Amen. Okay. So what you can definitely what do you expect us to learn from that experience?
What I expect us to learn from the experience is that there is nobody on planet Earth that does not have a part that teaches the corporate business. It is possible with everyone. Yes.
So it's just about you mastering how you can. Good. That's very good. Yes, that's very good. Thank you very much. So we have seen that nothing is impossible in the business world. It's about your communication. Because if you were able, we all know how the Jehovah's Witness are. But if you were able to, condescend the man and still get into your and today he's one of the top members, what does that tell us? What does that tell us? What does that tell you? Okay, we're not following. What does that tell you? No, what does that tell you? what does that tell you? What does that communicate to you? That you can get anybody to I need you to follow because you're here to learn. So I'll make sure you get it to do what? To do business with you, not so. Exactly. So never say it's impossible. Now it just depends on the kind of business. You need to find where you fit in. Alright, some people are very good with clothes. So if you're good with clothes, that's fine. Not everybody.
Words that can, it's a way of learning somebody to accept what he or she would not have accepted without the
So is that
style.
what you call political communication? I think, Market, you know what political communication is?
Okay, I mentioned something.
Yes, you mentioned something like that.
Did I use the word political communication?
Yes, sir, you use political communication.
I may want to bring it back here under diplomacy. There is a way.
Yes.
Also, it can come in when you want to resolve some issues.
Okay.
You will also apply diplomacy. The way of resolving
The
issues, as well as the way of making somebody satisfied, whereas the person was not supposed to be satisfied.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about, Chimo.
Yeah.
That if you find your clients coming to collect their goods
Mm.
and maybe their goods are limited,
Apps.
how do you satisfy all the clients? Apply diplomacy, then let's see.
Okay, first of all, this
Yes.
is a business
Yes.
scenario.
Yes.
Talking about applying diplomacy.
Diplomacy, yes.
For instance, we have the secretary.
Mm-hmm.
We have the person distributing the book. The secretary is supposed to take down the information, the details, and it goes now to the person distributing. From there, the person will go through it and see that this thing like this cannot be released out. Then now he then give what he can release. It goes back now. The person that is to receive is not comfortable.
Yeah.
They disagree. Then that's when now we call what the middleman now actually can come into the situation. If the person is so aggressive that cannot be tamed down, that is when now we then involve another degree of hierarchy. Yeah, that is the way the diplomacy now comes in. When now we apply the other hierarchy, now the hierarchy comes into it, and still yet the situation cannot still be tamed down. That is when he will just continue.
Okay. And in the part where you have to satisfy all your clients, you need to apply diplomacy. Yes. So next thing is retention ability. Let's retain information. It's very important.
Does anybody have anything? Share as feedback. We need feedback. Then, let me say something.
You need to work on that concerning, like when you have a customer, a client in the office, he does not understand you, you need to do every effort to make sure he understands you. From that, I would say there's been a blessing.
We just give it up for
Communication is something that when you apply it in our today's life, you realize that most secretaries, like if you ask a question now to most secretaries, like have you ever been in such a training? They haven't. That's just the honest truth, they haven't. Because the way, there are some situations whereby your client didn't take to your ball, like I can't remember the secretary, the way your secretary spoke to me, I didn't like it, I felt bad. And as a result of that, those clients get to go back home with negative thought, and I think it kind of bring down the image of the company at that time. So I am very much happy that this I've come and I'm going back with my personal assignment. I'm taking it as a challenge. I feel like when you take something as a challenge, you learn.